出来了不？
Okay, I'm gonna say some words first. Friends from media, thanks very much for coming to this press event. This event will go like this. We will have candidate from Markham, South Hill, Mary Ames and candidate from Scarborough Centre, Bill Blair, to make a statement.
Scarborough Southwest.
Southwest.
My food's good enough.
Sorry, yeah. And then we'll have opportunities for media friends to ask questions, in which if you need Chinese translations, our candidate Han Dong and Alan Ho will be translating in Mandarin and Cantonese respectively. 各位来参加由自由党多个候选人共同主持的一个新闻发布会。那么今天的议程是这样的：首先是由万景康山区的国会议员吴凤仪和那个施家堡西南区的候选人布莱尔给大家做一个声明，然后呢各位媒体朋友有时间可以提问。多谢大家。
Good morning, everyone, and thank you all for coming. Before we begin, I just want to acknowledge that we are gathered on the traditional territory of the peoples of the Anishinaabe, the Huron-Wendat, the Haudenosaunee, and the Mississaugas of the New Credit First Nations. And thank you again for being here with all of us today. With me today are my colleagues, Bill Blair, the Liberal candidate for Scarborough Southwest, Han Dong, the Liberal candidate for Don Valley North, Alan Ho, the Liberal candidate for Markham Unionville, Jean Yip, the Liberal candidate for Scarborough Agincourt, Adam Vaughan, the Liberal candidate for Scarborough Fort York, Helena Jasic, the Liberal candidate for Markham Stouffville, Leah Taylor-Roy, Liberal candidate for Aurora, Oak Ridges, Richmond Hill, Sean Chen, Liberal candidate for Scarborough North, Majid Johari, Liberal candidate for Richmond Hill. I'm sorry if I bear repeating this because I don't know if I did. Helena Jasic, Liberal candidate for Markham Stouffville. Apologies. So although this is going to be an important discussion, it is a conversation I wish we were not having. For generations, Canada has welcomed people from around the world. This is a country strengthened by the diversity of everyone who chooses to call Canada home. You have heard that this election is about a choice. That is what our Liberal campaign has been presenting to Canadians. But that choice, but you take that choice away from millions of Canadians when the Conservatives decide that Chinese Canadians are less intelligent or somehow less worthy of the truth. And this is wrong. Decades ago, when Chinese immigrants first arrived in Canada, many to work on the railway, they came to a land that needed their labor, but resented their presence. Because of Canadian multiculturalism and our Charter of Rights and Freedom, I stand before you as a proud Chinese Canadian. I stand before you as having served as a Minister of the Crown. I stand before you as an equal. We are not less intelligent. We are not less worthy of the truth. We are not less Canadian. 我係自豪嘅加拿大華人，我哋都係加拿大人，我哋同樣聰明，同樣追求真理。At a time when Canadians are looking to their leaders for a plan to bring us into the future, the Conservative Party is bringing us backwards by spreading disinformation and stoking fear. They have decided that in order to win an election, they must divide based on our differences and create subsections of Canadians. my colleagues and I will not stand quietly by and watch the Conservative Party of Canada target Chinese Canadians with lies.
Afternoon, everyone. I have been advised that many people in the Chinese Canadian community have been receiving phone calls from the Conservative Party, and they are being told in those phone calls something that is not true, something that is a lie, something that is intended to make them fearful and to misinform those Chinese Canadians. And what they are being told is a lie that says that the Liberal Party will legalize all drugs. I want to be very clear to you all. This is a lie. I am the minister and have been the minister responsible for issues of public safety and dealing with the opioid crisis in this country. I have said many, many times in the House of Commons, I have said it publicly, I have said it in committee, and I'm saying it here to you all today, hoping that you will help share the truth with Chinese Canadians across this country. The Liberal government will not, and I repeat, we will not legalize all drugs. We believe that these drugs that are currently responsible for killing so many Canadians are far too dangerous. And therefore, we actually have a commitment to a national drug strategy, the first pillar of which is to interdict the supply of these drugs coming into Canada. We are working very hard with our international partners, overseas in the United States and here in Canada, to keep these drugs and their dangerous chemicals out of our country. And we are absolutely committed to enforcing our laws to ensure that these drugs are not available to our children or to our citizens anywhere in Canada. We are also committed to making significant investments to reduce the demand for these drugs among our children. The demand reduction efforts involve public education and research, working with parents, teachers, doctors, communities, and our children to make sure that they know the danger of these drugs to make better choices. We are also very concerned with the number of people who have died in Canada, and so we are also working hard to keep those people from dying by initiating various harm reduction strategies, because there is no greater responsibility for any government than the safety and the health of their citizens. And finally, we are making significant investments in treatment and rehabilitation. Our commitment to addictions treatment in Canada is $700 million over the next 4 years. By comparison, the Conservatives, who only fearmonger and spread falsehoods about drug policy, have committed to investing only $36 million over 4 years. $700 million for drug rehabilitation and addiction services versus $36 million. I think it's very clear which government, which party, takes this issue seriously and is committed to keeping our communities and our children safe. I will repeat, we will have no intention and will not legalize those dangerous drugs which are responsible for killing our citizens and endangering our children. I also want to talk briefly, if I may, about some of the other things that we are doing in public safety. As many of you know, I spent many years as the Chief of Police in Toronto, and during that time I was responsible for keeping our community safe. I will also tell you that during that 10 years, I often went to Ottawa and I asked for help from the Harper government. But my pleas for help for my city and my citizens fell on deaf ears. And so, at the conclusion of my career as a police chief, I then sought to be elected as a member of Parliament for the Liberal Party. I went to Ottawa, and we have been working tirelessly on making sure that we listen to the police, that we listen to local officials, that we listen to communities, and that we take real action to protect our children and to displace organized crime from our communities. And in our Liberal platform, we have listened to police chiefs and police officers across the country and communities. They have told us they're very concerned about the number of guns in our community. We know that the Conservatives work for the gun lobby. They take their money and solicit their support. And they have promised to weaken our gun laws. They have promised to make assault rifles more readily available, to make large capacity magazines more readily available, to end the very sensible measures of Bill C-71 that included enhanced background checks. to essentially weaken our gun laws to make them very much like American gun laws. Canadians do not want to live like Americans with all of their guns. And so we have made a commitment to strengthen our gun laws. And the Liberal government will take very significant measures, which I'd like to share briefly with you. First of all, we will ban all military-style assault rifles. These are the weapons that were designed for soldiers to kill other soldiers. There is no place for them in Canadian society, and they have been used many times in Canada, in the United States, and around the world to murder innocent people because they were designed to murder innocent people. So we will ban them from our country. We are also taking significant steps because we know criminals gain their handguns in our gangs and in communities across Canada from three sources. They get them by smuggling them across the border. After the Conservatives cut more than 1,000 officers from our Custom Border Services and more than 1,200 officers from the RCMP, we have been busy putting those resources back on the border, back in investigations to keep those guns from coming into our country from the United States. We also know that many of those guns are stolen. And for example, the gun that was used in the terrible Danforth shooting that happened last summer, that gun was stolen from a gun store in Saskatchewan, and a few months later ended up in the hands of a criminal who used it to kill 2 young innocent children and injure 13 Canadian citizens as they went about their daily lives. Had that gun been stored properly in a safe or a vault, it would not have ended up on our streets. And so we will bring in legislation that will require that every single handgun in Canada must be stored in a safe or a vault, so it would be much more difficult for criminals to steal. And I've met with the mayors, I've met with police chiefs, and they said in some of our communities, these guns should not be stored at home. They should only be stored at the range, which is the only legal place that they can be used. We've listened to those police officers, and we've listened to those mayors. We've listened to communities, and we are prepared to work with municipalities to make sure they have the authority they need, to make sure that guns can only be stored in a place that will be safe and appropriate for their circumstances. We have also decided to make very significant investments in what we call red flag laws. We know that many of these guns, if the gun is present in a domestic violence situation where a man and a woman are fighting violently, or in a dispute with your neighbor, or if someone is suicidal and considering taking their own life, or finally if someone is online advocating hatred and violence against a minority group or a religious minority, we know that that can create a very dangerous situation for Canadians. And so we are going to empower the police, but also doctors, teachers, victims, and community to take immediate action to, when those dangerous situations arise, to render them safe, to ensure that no one can have a gun in those circumstances, to suspend their gun licenses and seize guns from that situation. These measures will help keep Canadians safe. We are also prepared to bring in new legislation that will create greater authorities for the police to conduct their investigations and real meaningful penalties for those who engage in gun smuggling, gun trafficking, and gun crimes. Because again, we have actually listened to the police. And finally, it's also important to make investments in communities and in our children so that young people are not drawn into gangs and drugs in the first place. And so we are the only party that is advocating, when elected, we will introduce $250 million. You know, we've tried and we've been working very closely with the provinces. We made available $347 million to the provinces across Canada to deal with guns and gang initiatives. I will tell you, in the 10 years that I was the police chief in Toronto, Ottawa never offered us a nickel to deal with guns and gangs. We made $347 million available. But it's been very difficult to get that money through the province, allocated to municipalities to begin doing the important work that is necessary to keep our communities safe. And so we will continue with the commitment of $347 million, but we've added an additional $250 million, and we'll be going straight to the municipalities, working directly with communities, working with parents and teacher organizations who work with children to help those kids make better choices. All of those investments, coupled with our efforts to lift children out of poverty, to make investments in better housing, to do all of the things that will improve the quality of life in all of our neighborhoods, are measures that a Liberal government will make to keep people safe. And when the Conservatives talk tough on crime, look at what they actually do. They cut funding for the police. They cut funding for the border services. They cut funding for communities. They cut funding for all of the things that keep us safe, and yet they talk tough. And when they're really behind the 8 ball, they tell lies. And they suggest that we, the Liberals, will do something that we have always said we would not do. The Prime Minister has said it, I have said it, the Health Minister has said it, the Justice Minister has said it. We will not legalize those dangerous drugs that the Conservatives suggested that we will. Thank you very much.
The first question? We heard about false advertising, disinformation in the American election and Brexit in UK. Did your government, for the last 4 years, try to stop this kind of misconduct? Now it looks like it happens in our election time. So what if Liberal get elected? Will you do something to stop this kind of like false advertising, misinformation or disinformation?
We already have taken action. Leading up to this election, we have, through the Minister of Democratic Institutions, have put a process in place so that should there be information that is inaccurate, that is fake, that is getting out there to Canadians, that we urge Canadians that we communicate that to Canadians. So we, in fact, have already taken action. That's what today is also about. This is unacceptable. It is unacceptable to target Chinese Canadians with disinformation and with lies with the sole purpose of misleading them. So this is what today is about, and we thank you for coming so that you are able to help us share this information with Canadians.
Maybe I'll let Alan and Han speak a few words about answering the questions, or
why don't we take another question?
No? Okay.
Yes, Anise.
Next one.
Hi, so Annie's from Powell. My question is for the Canada Elections Commission to formally investigate this incident. Someone would have to file a formal complaint. So are you guys in the process of doing that, or have you guys already filed that?
I have.
Yeah.
The lie about the real estate tax. We filed a formal complaint. Facebook has taken it down. Every major media organization has denounced it. It's a lie. They found it crawling through our garbage cans, and they should have left it there. It's an absolute flat-out lie. But the trouble is that the Conservatives know they can't win by telling the truth. They think they can fool people by lying because they know their platform doesn't impress anybody. And so instead they lie to people. They can't win telling the truth. They're trying to win by lying. And it's a formal complaint's gone into the Elections Commission. Formal complaints gone into social media. But even when they are faced with the truth, they just find a different route to lie through. Now they're running ads on television screens throughout Chinatown. Am I right? It's deceitful. And I don't know why they think lying to the Chinese community is an effective tactic. It's profoundly dishonorable. It insults their family names. And quite frankly, it insults Canadians of all backgrounds. People refused to take it down. They just labeled it deliberately misleading. Facebook has not assumed the same level of responsibilities that other social media platforms have. But at the end of the day, it's up to news organizations, and I'm a former journalist. Repeating a lie as a journalist is still lying. And when the Conservatives are caught in a flat-out lie, the obligation of journalists is not to repeat it and say, decide for yourself. Your job is to tell people they're being lied to, because they're being lied to. And that's dishonorable conduct. And as I said, they can't win telling the truth, and so they only have one option, and that's to lie to people. And they think they can lie to the Chinese community particularly because they hide it behind the Chinese language. If they were to come to my riding and talk about hard drugs the way they talk about hard drugs in the Chinese media, they would be laughed out of the campaign. It's time they get laughed out of this campaign.
So that ad in WeChat said during the leaders' debate in French, Mr. Trudeau was asked if he would legalize hard drugs, and he said, the ad said, he said, not right away. So is that wrong? Is that?
Let me be very clear.
No, that's what the ad said.
Well, the ad is wrong. The Prime Minister has said no.
Right. I
have said no, and I'm the Minister responsible, or have been, and the Prime Minister has said we're not doing that. So they're misrepresenting that. There are a number of important things we are doing to keep people alive, but legalizing drugs is not one of our considerations. We are not doing that. We're not going to do that. We haven't talked about doing that. It's just misinformation from the Conservatives. And I will tell you, I've read things online that they purport that I have said. They're simply not true. And as my colleague, Mr. Vaughan, has said, it is dishonorable to lie. and they need to be called out for their lies.
So Mr. Trudeau was never asked in the French debate for that question.
The ads that are running right now, the pamphlets that are being distributed, the phone calls that are being made by the Conservatives targeted Chinese Canadians is disinformation, and they are lies. That's what this is about today. This is about the Conservative Party wanting to win an election, not by talking about their plan for Canadians. We have been talking about a choice for Canadians. We have been talking about the plan for Canadians. We have been talking about the progress and the investments that we're going to make in families, how we're going to deal with climate change, how we're going to make investments. Today, what we are saying is the pamphlets, the calls, the social media ads, they are disinformation and they are lies, and they are targeted to the Chinese Canadian community. And that is wrong, because we are not any less intelligent, and we deserve the truth.
I understand. I just want to
Okay,
ask.
let's ask, wait for the second round. Any other, yeah, Susan.
Yeah, Susan from FM 105.9. So I have a question. I think there is some certain base for them to make up this lie, because there is legal injection site, right? Is that connected to what they're lying about?
No, there is not.
Okay.
So can Liberal take any action against this fake
We're
ad?
communicating to Canadians through you. We are communicating to Canadians what this is, and we trust that Canadians will be able to make a choice. But what's really important here is to share with Canadians the tactics that are being deployed here and the lies that are being perpetrated directly to the Chinese Canadian community. That's what today is about.
Any legal actions or no legal actions can be taken?
We're
Not till after
going-
the election. The problem.
How are you going to defuse it?
Communicating with Canadians directly, communicating with Chinese Canadians directly, communicating through you, the members of the Chinese Canadian Press Corps, to communicate to Chinese Canadians.
Have the Conservatives in their respective writings responded to this at all?
They have shared pamphlets, they have shared social media, they have made phone calls to perpetuate this.
So they have not communicated to you guys after we
Our-
found out that?
When we knock on doors and when we are talking to our constituents, we are hearing directly from our constituents, and they're asking us these questions, and we are refuting what are lies.
Can we get Mandarin and Cantonese
Yes.
response?
Han, please.
OK，我講廣東話。其實今次呢個競選咧，一路以嚟咧，我哋睇到咧係好多錯誤嘅資料。其實我好心痛嘅，因為咧大家都睇到咧就係保守黨咧，佢哋知道咧，如果佢哋講真相咧係冇辦法贏，因此佢哋咧係無中生有製造恐慌。佢哋甚至咧即係講到咧嗰啲事實咧係完全脱離嘅。咁對於一個咁嘅政黨，其實我哋可唔可以再信佢咧？佢點解要講呢啲大話咧？其實佢最重要目的咧，就係佢隱藏住佢哋係想削赤嗰種。我哋睇睇佢哋削530億嘅赤字，咁樣點可以咧係有錢去做佢哋講嘅 service 咧？我希望大家睇清楚呢件事。多謝。
我想問你，因為我頭先問 Mary， 佢唔係好答清楚，我想用廣東話問清楚你。個 WeChat ad 咧，佢講到明喺個法語辯論裏邊咧，阿杜魯多咧被問到你會唔會合法化 hard drugs， 佢答案英文係 not way， 個 ad 係咁寫嘅。咁我想問你，或者你同事係究竟法語辯論裏邊，佢有冇被人問到咁嘅問題？佢有冇咁樣答啫？嗱，有定冇？係就可以解釋到 ad 係真定假嘅。
其實咧，我哋個總理咧就已經咧解釋得好清楚。咁樣呢啲咧，其實咧係嗰啲字眼上嘅爭拗。咁你哋睇清楚咧，就係我哋嘅總理已經解釋過，我哋個安全部長又解釋過。咁因此咧，嗰個真相就係話，我哋係冇呢個計劃。
我知道， 但你個 ad 有冇講錯？個 French debate 有冇錯先？
我是聽你講的，但是你問再多次呢，答案都是一樣的。總理說不會有這個計劃，對嗎？
咁即係話佢係 French debate misspoke 咗啦。
今天呢，我們聽到那個前面的伍部長和 Bill Blair 部長他們當然他們現在是候選人他們很清晰地告訴我們華裔社區就過去保守黨過去的一段時間裡面，利用文字，不管是他們從 Central 還是在部分的選區呢，用中文有意的投放謊言，來欺騙我們華人的候選人華人的那個選民。這個做法呢，我是在我過去的20幾年是沒有看到過的。前面我們聽得很清楚，我認為呢，競選的時候是各個黨把自己的政綱、把自己計劃交出來給選民選擇的時候，而我們聽到我們的Bill Blair 之前呢說過，自由黨的計劃是在今後的4年裡面投資7億用於戒毒，幫助人戒毒因為每年呢加拿大現在呢是有幾千人死於 drug overdose 的是那過分的吸毒的，而保守黨呢，他們每年他們計劃是3600萬，7億和3600萬的區別，這很明顯，我們是有計劃、有幫助、有需要的人去戒毒的，而保守黨在他們計劃上面，在這一點上面，他們不能取勝，所以呢，他們就針對華人定點的投放這樣子的謊言。我認為謝爾和保守黨，他們既然用中文對華裔有意的撒謊，他們就應該用中文對華裔澄清這個事實來道歉。
So one last question. Under current law, there's no way we can stop the false advertising misinformation. Because if this happens, we are going to see this happen again in the municipal, provincial, and all kinds of elections in Canada. So as the MP right now, as the would-be MP, what are you going to do something?
My friend, the best defense against the lie is to tell the truth.
Not the law.
The Chinese Canadian community deserves the truth. And I have to tell you, in this campaign, we have seen so many conservative lies. You know, one of the conservative members said that more than half, he said most, of refugees have a criminal record. This is a lie. It was meant to frighten people. And when I said we were going to ban assault rifles, they said we were going to take away everyone's hunting rifle. This is another lie. They told a terrible lie, suggesting that we were going to impose a tax on housing. It was just a lie meant to frighten Canadians into supporting Conservatives. And here we are yet again today, exposing another lie, where they have told Chinese Canadians something that is completely false, and they have done it to make them afraid. And I will tell you, fear is our greatest enemy in this country. When people become afraid, they stop supporting themselves, their neighbors, they stop taking the children to the park, they stop living the life that all Canadians deserve to live. I think it is disgraceful for a political party to use fear and resentment for political purposes. Canadians deserve the truth. And dishonest statements by the Conservatives are dishonorable and do a great disservice to all Canadians. You know, the law is not able to discount a lie as well as the truth. And that's why we all stand before you today, to tell the truth. And I'm willing to stake my reputation. I have worked to keep this community and this country safe for nearly 40 years. I have stood in the House of Commons, I have stood publicly, and I have gone to my own community, and I stand before you here today. We are not legalizing all drugs. That is a lie that the Conservatives are telling to try to frighten people to support them. And by the way, I'm not the only one in my government who has said it. The Prime Minister also stood in the House of Commons. I invite you to go and look in the answer. The Prime Minister could not have been clearer when he said we are not legalizing all drugs.
Okay.
We stand by the truth.
Thank you.
Thank you.